sound like you. But I've been given a terrible task. I dwell in the void between the terrestrial and the celestial realms. I oversee the balance between good and evil.
Child of Satan. This one stars Kacey Clarke, aka Kacey Barnfield, and is a super low budget horror film about, of course, the offspring of the devil himself. And the story starts off with this kind of young guy pissed out of his brains in Mexico somewhere on the Day of the Dead, and he randomly meets this kind of guy in kind of skeleton makeup who decides he's going to somehow curse this guy to produce the spawn of Satan some years later. So unusually, it's the man who kind of ends up getting the seed, so to speak. Inevitably, he gives this to his wife, who 5 years later gives birth to a baby boy. And this boy basically causes most people around him to ultimately become weirdly possessed and kind of do murderous things and end up becoming like a zombie almost in service of the devil himself. So that's your basic plot premise here. So what do I think about Child of Satan? Well, let's talk about any of the positives first of all. So for me, there was a couple of okay performances, most notably from Kacey Clarke Barnfield, who was the kind of the lead actress here. I thought she was the best actor in the movie herself. She has got quite a few acting credits, so you know she's got a good amount of experience, and compared to everyone else, she was actually, her performance was more believable. Also a shout to her mother in the film, played by an older actress, again was quite a good actress. And those two, when they had sort of screen time together, definitely above par acting than anyone else. Second thing I would say is the camera work actually looks quite good. When you first watch this film, you actually feel like you're watching maybe a bit more of a professional film than you actually are, because the camera work here looks actually quite good, and the things like the production design as well looks pretty good here. So let's talk negatives here. You might feel I'm being somewhat evasive with the positives, and there is a reason for this. So let's talk about the rest of the acting first of all. There are scenes in this film that look like it's from a porn film, but without the sex scenes, basically. It's like porn acting. I mean, some of the things need to be seen to be believed.
Ta-da.
Well, look at you.
Yep, my ill-spent youth pays off.
I know this is no dorm, but I at least owe you another cup of coffee.
The second thing here, the visual effects. I mean, the visual effects here are really, so cheap. I mean, they use a lot of kind of CGI, but on scenes where they don't need to. There's scenes where simply glass is smashing in windows, but for some reason, rather than just throwing something through a glass pane, they've CGI glass, and it doesn't even sit on the ground. It kind of twitches around and stuff. It's hilarious. The plot itself as well has got so many plot holes and kind of just things that don't make sense. This woman, the main character, is like a nurse, for example, and you know, two of her kind of close colleagues just end up going missing because they're kind of possessed, basically, and she just doesn't hear anything about it and is completely unawares of it, for example. But there's so many things throughout this film that just don't make logical sense, and it kind of time jumps seemingly without kind of telling you, and it's just ridiculous. I mean, the plot here, it just seems to just kind of like just do what it wants, and it seems to me there's not a lot of a script here. There's like a random knife that turns up, which is a kind of like a holy knife. It just turns up out of nowhere. And then is never actually used. It's kind of like, it just seems to be pretty ridiculous. I will say this is one of those films where you'll genuinely sit down and laugh at it, because you're thinking, my God, I mean, how is this kind of film been put together? You've got Eric Roberts here, you know, credited, but he's really only in it for a I think 3 very short scenes, and he kind of prays his priest. Amusingly, this is give you an idea. He's not even wearing an actual priest costume. It looks like a kind of a priest costume from like Party City or something, where it's got not an actual dog collar. It's just like, it's just got a all in one, and it kind of ties up at the back. You see him, see a shot from the back, and it looks like it's just like this one thing all tied up. It's hilariously cheap. Like I said, for Kacey Clarke, I would say the scenes where she does the majority of dialogue feel like it props this kind of film up a lot more than it should do. But the rest of this film is really pretty bad. But you may enjoy it on a kind of like laughing at it level, because it's just one ridiculous plot point after the other, and it's just kind of, it ends in such a kind of like just like, oh, that's it. There's no real kind of payoff, essentially. A particularly cheap movie that is probably best left avoided unless you want to deliberately laugh at it. So I'm going to give this film a 2.5 out of 10. Have you seen it? What do you think of it? Leave a comment, and I shall look forward to you next time. Bye for now.